Welcome to the Citizens Chat Room, the room of ideas. On 1st April 2021, the government, through the Minister, Maitia Kasaija, proposed taxes that will be made laws in the subsequent month. And in here, key highlights of these laws will be that you, the owners of cars, will be taxed, yeah? And you'll be able to be expected to pay at the end of the year, 31st January every year. When you fail to do this, there are penalties to that. There are also laws that will be on on data. We have laws that will be on for rental and the tax on rent for you, the landlords and the tenants. So our discussion today is based on this, and we are discussing the impact of these laws on the citizens of Uganda. Our discussion is live on our YouTube today. It is live on our Facebook. And those following on Twitter, the discussion is on the hashtag #ChatShowUG. Kindly follow the discussion, post your comments there, make your voice heard. Joined on the panel today, my name is Masesa Demiano, your host today, and I'm joined by Jane Nalunga from far right. She's the Executive Director of SEATINI. And from Jane, I'm joined by Robert Suna. He's a tax consultant and a tax expert. And Sarah Birete, the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Right away, we are going directly into the debate, and I'll need to I already start from the far right, Madam Jane. We're discussing what are the key determinants and characteristics of a good tax system.
You see, a good tax system, one, the tax should be balanced, should be fair, should not be digressive. Digressive taxes are those taxes which tax people who earn more, they tax them less. And people who earn less are taxed more. Or where they are uniform taxes for the poor and for the rich, you know. So such taxes are called digressive taxes. But also the mode of collection of that tax should be appropriate, should be easy, should not be controversial. For example, you remember the issue of the graduated tax, the way tax collectors used to run after people, tying them with ropes, you know. So the mode of collection also matters. But the most important issue is that the taxes have to be fair and equitable. And they should also, because, you know, tax goes beyond revenue. You know, government shouldn't tax for the sake of getting revenue. Those taxes in civil society, we call them predatory taxes, you know, or vampire taxes, where you are sucking even blood out of the economy, out of the people. The tax system should balance the revenue, repricing, that you can be able to control society, the behavior of society through a tax. For example, taxing tobacco, taxing fizzy drinks, so that you are looking at the health. Taxes should be distributional, that you are taxing the rich, but you also, you know, taking care of the poor. So you are redistributing wealth. And tax has to be, you know, representation, that it can encourage people to pay taxes, can encourage people to be part of the governance, so that, you know, people, citizens are demanding for accountability. So those are what they call the 4 areas of taxation. And any tax system has to balance that.
Are we seeing that in Uganda today?
In a way, yes, but not so much. For example, when you take the current tax proposals on table, there are tax proposals, for example, which are dealing with the economy. One of the tax proposals deals with taxes on exports of wheat bran and maize bran. it's important that we don't export that because we need it as animal feed. But the problem with that proposal is that the export tax should have been on the raw material, the maize, so that we are not exporting the maize grain. Normally, a number of countries have been instituting export taxes on raw materials. And the way export taxes work is the more raw the product is, the higher the tax. So that the tax reduces as you add value. And this helps when it comes to having raw materials for our industries, creating jobs, So such a tax goes beyond just revenue, but looks at the economy. I can give another example in their current tax proposals on plastics. There's a tax on plastics, which is good for the environment. And for us, we are saying that tax should also be increased so that we discourage, the use of plastics. We need packages which are recyclable, But again, there, we are asking government to ensure that people have packaging materials like glass. So you reduce the taxes on good packaging materials which can be recyclable and which are biodegradable, and then increase taxes on plastics. Another example I can give on health. On the fizzy drinks, we are also saying government should increase taxes on, I won't say the names, on those fizzy drinks, Beer is another one. Sugar, there are these drinks, and they are now all over. Somebody just gets a bottle, gets a color, gets sugar, puts it there, puts some gas, and people are buying all over the place. One, it's bad for the health. In fact, when you look at the studies which have been done, that those drinks are causing diabetes in children. A number of children are getting diabetes. And diabetes used to be for old people. They are now getting it. Two, the problem with those fizzy drinks, that they are pushing away value addition of our own grown natural sugars. You find pineapples. You buy 10 pineapples at 10,000, and your heart bleeds. Yet we could be adding value, having very good drinks, like what we had in my hometown in Masaka, crepes. We should be crepes. We should be doing that. So fizzy drinks should be taxed. So when you look at that tax system, in our government has tried, but we need to help government more to be able to look at that balancing.
These are investors that we are trying to attract. So when you levy such taxes, won't you be sending away the investors that the government
we have overflowed this whole issue of investors. Investors.
Providing jobs.
Where are the jobs? Because you see, we have no minimum wage. The minimum wage bill is stuck in Parliament. When you look at our Investment Code Act, it has no performance requirements. You don't ask an investor to have joint venture. Yet today, we have contradictions in our regulations. Today, we are telling government to pass the local content bill. And one of the issues in the local content bill is that to encourage investors to do joint ventures, which is good. But in the investment code, it isn't there. There are no, you can't tell an investor to do joint ventures, You can't tell an investor to source locally because it isn't there. That's why we get Chinese here. We get loans from them. They come, they do the roads, the bridges and the dams. They bring their own people. They bring the cement. They bring the iron bars. They bring everything,
Also taken over sand mining.
Exactly. So what are we getting from FDI? FDI is supposed to be a win-win-win situation. the investor wins because it's a business. Government wins, the people win, the communities win, the environment wins. Any law, regarding investors has to balance that. But our governments have failed. We are looking at one side, investors, and on top of that, whatever they do, we give them tax exemptions. They're also here in the current proposals there. In fact, we are adding on tax exemptions. So I don't think we should be worried about investors.
Thank you, Jane. Let me get to Robert. What do you think from your tax engagements? What do you think are the good tax systems that you think we could work with?
I think Jane has done good justice to that discussion, especially when she highlights the 4 canons of taxation: redistribution, repricing, and the rest. But also, there is a component of accountability. You see, it is one thing to levy a tax and collect it nicely, but how do you spend it? That's another issue. Which sectors are you spending on the taxes? Some good tax systems would advocate for what we call pro-poor spending. Sectors like education, health, and the rest. But when you look at Uganda's tax system, what allocations are going to those sectors? You ask your question in that. And you're talking about the National Development Plan, which is emphasizing human capital development. What allocations are going to those sectors? So you're collecting the taxes, heavy as they may be, or low as they may be, you're collecting them nicely, but where are you allocating them? And after allocating them, do you go back to the nationals and tell them, this is how much you allocated and these have been the gains? Do you have that accountability mechanism? So for me, a good tax system is incomplete until we even see the chain of accountability on how that tax was allocated. And if it was allocated, was it actually spent? Did you spend the actual amount that you allocated to that tax? So that's why we've seen in Africa, for instance, majority of the people who debate about tax systems are more concerned about the cycle during the budget process. And they pay less attention to the outcome, the end product. And then the cycle resumes again, the bills come again, and we debate them. Is it a fair one? Is it a rate? Okay. But after collecting the tax, where did you put it? Some tax systems prefer to invest taxes in what we call productive sectors, sectors that generate employment. I'm always amazed by the themes of Uganda's budgets. For the last 5 years, there is the word industrialization, job creation, and the rest. But when you go into the budget allocation, they will say industrialization for job creation. But you see, how much have you allocated to the sector that is targeting promotion of industrialization? You can be amazed. They will say the 3 top sectors: defense, maybe transport, and of course this is being pushed by the infrastructure developments that are going on, and then debt repayment. So that aspect of allocation and holding the government accountable at the end of the day and tell them, well, this is what you gave the education sector, but the sector is not performing as expected because you gave it low. I know when we think of the main cake and how big it is, every sector would wish to put its own. And they're like, you've given me very little. But government set priorities. And for me, I'm always worried when I see misalignment of the National Development Plan vis-a-vis the budgeting. You create sectors which you deem to be priority sectors. You say ICT, human capital development. You even create, even you go to agriculture, you create even the crops you will look after. But when it comes to actual implementation, there is a very big divergence. The compliance of budget allocation vis-a-vis the NDP planning, you find like the performance is like 30% in terms of alignment. That's that work that the NDP does to evaluate that. And government does not learn from that. The report is produced, but again, the same mistake is done the following year, year in, year out. So my thing would be, just if you say the National Development Plan is our guiding document for planning, follow it even in your policy as a priority. When you say this is a priority sector, let it be duplicated in your planning systems, including the budgeting cycle. We, unfortunately, have not seen, at least for the last decade, have not seen that being done in the budgeting cycle for Uganda, which I again evaluate in the next year and say, oh, last year's budget wasn't aligned to the NDP too. And then we shall review the NDP. Very nice document with so many priorities, and we're talking about Vision 2040 and the rest. Very wonderful written document. But to the extent that we are moving forward to support it is lacking.
So there could be priorities like security, which is key for investment.
Exactly. I have no problem with, I have no problem, by the way, with government priorities. But let them be as transparent as possible. Tell us that actually we did not plan security as part of the NDP too. It has come and we need it. So that people are aware that actually there has been a miscalculation. So the NDP is no longer followed. And for us, you're telling us, the nationals want to hear that the document, all the cornerstone for planning in government and allocation is the National Development Plan, which, of course, by the way, even writing it costed us a lot of money to make it the document that it is. So those misalignments do not only cause the misalignment in the tax system, it causes misalignment in the whole policy process. And when you have policies that are incoherent, it is very hard to say your tax system was good. For instance, I was amazed in 2018. In 2017, government had just produced a very fine document on what they call the financial inclusion strategy, 2017-2022. And they were looking at reducing financial exclusion from 15% to 5% by 2022. And that's in 2018 is when they introduced mobile money taxes and the rest. So the tax is here and taking away the exclusion, but the system from the central bank and this are like, we are promoting financial inclusion. I mean, that incoherence is getting because, first of all, what you call the guiding document was not followed, in which case you're undermining the guys who are working in the National Planning Authority, for that matter, that no, that document was done and that is it, let's follow other things. So what informs government priorities is usually sidelined for other priorities. And then we come back to the drawing board and say, we erred on this one, we erred on this, and this continues year in and year out. So maybe when they are proposing revision in the National Development Plan, they should tell us where the priority sectors are now security, transport, and the rest, so that we know there is a new now guiding principle on that. But as long as that's not done, then for me, our tax system will remain, as Jen has said, whether not regressive, whether repriced, or whether, but that allocation mechanism and the accountability, as long as it is not diligently done, then we cannot consider our tax system as good. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, back to getting to Sarah. What is the impact of, first try to explain further, the impact of the proposed taxes on the citizens? Wananchi.
Okay, but before I get to that, I in addition to what my co-panelists have said, the wealth of nations is determined by just an assessment of the tax system. If a tax system is not entrenched enough to take care of economic stability, where there is full-time employment of the citizens, where there is the wealth and health of the citizens are taken care of and protected, and then the development of a nation is not firm, and people, the citizens are unable to see the horizon. When they assess this, then that wealth of that particular nation is at stake. And this is where Uganda is at this particular moment. The experts have explained the canons of taxation, but I'll just speak on two. Equity. A good tax system is supposed to tax the rich while subsidizing the poor. But when you look at the big chunk of our indirect taxes, taxes on salt, taxes on paraffin, taxes on sugar, taxes on soap, taxes on the basic needs, the basics. These are taxes made at the same length by the poor and the rich. So you do not have proportionality. The proportionality principle gets lost in the biggest chunk of our indirect taxes. We know that there is efficiency in indirect taxes because there is almost 100%, you know, to correct them. But also where these taxes should be levied more on luxurious goods as compared to necessities. And that aspect is not seen in our tax system. Let me look at the example of the road tax. I'm glad the Finance Committee has rejected it at committee level. We hope that the plenary will not reintroduce it because it's very absurd. The tax on road, for road license was shifted in 2007 and put on fuel, 200 shillings added on a liter of fuel. So as you consume fuel, you are paying road license. The answer is very clear. So when you reintroduce road license, which is already paid, as we purchase fuel products, that's double taxation. But if government was saying that we are putting maybe extra levy on luxurious vehicles, the Lexus, the Lamborghini, the Hummer, the Brutec, and say that because, you know, yes, the V8. So if you're saying you have capacity to purchase, no, but they're the majority on our roads. Second, the people who buy them have extra income and they can pay extra tax. So if you are saying that we are adding a tax on luxurious vehicles, why do you do not burden somebody of a Viz or a Chukumi or Corona? Put tax on Lamborghini, Hummer, V8. They have the money. That's what a progressive tax is about.
But we know here whoever owns the cars has the money, so they can.
No. The unfortunate thing is that the people with money, whom I will call regime billionaires, because we have people who have become billionaires by way of connection with the system. Ideally, if you take away the regime, I'm sure most of them will be paupers. So these are people who have tax holidays, they don't pay any tax. Even they have ability to call URA, and their vehicles are cleared, either as part of government vehicles when they are private, because why should the government purchase a Lamborghini? For example, for what purpose? But government State House is procuring vehicles, and when you check details, you find Hummer, Lamborghini, you know, our corruption. And they enter tax-free. You see most of them with ambiguous number plates. They don't even pay for number plates. And these are the people with the biggest chunk of money. So this is the unfortunate bit in our tax system. But going back to your question of reintroduction of new taxes, we have a shrinking economy because of COVID pandemic, and the government of Uganda has confirmed that the collections for 2020 declined because of COVID impact. So once you have a reduction on collections in terms of taxes, it means that the citizens have no money in their pockets. And another principle of taxation is that people should not work to pay tax. You should consider profits in the hands of a taxpayer. A person is not working for a taxman. So you have people failing to raise the estimated revenue collections in the previous financial year, and we all know the global recession because of COVID pandemic. And you have government clearly, you know, understanding the context and even laying it down in their introduction. So when you have a shrinking economy, is this the timing for introducing new taxes? Instead, government should be looking at ways of growing domestic revenue to grow the household incomes, expand the tax base, and get more taxes in the next year. So this year should have been a focus on revamping the economy, on ensuring that the businesses have cash flows, on ensuring that every Ugandan has gone back to work, on ensuring that you open the economies by removing bogus COVID soaps like curfew, which takes away productive hours of the citizens. This is what a normal government, a progressive government should be focusing on.
There's a report that says that, of course, our economy was functioning well throughout the COVID time. We were one of the countries
No. The statistics are very clear. You know, figures don't lie. It's like a picture. A picture says 1,000 words. URA has met shortfalls. There is no propaganda you can do about that. If economy is working well, where is the evidence? It does not exist. The reverse is true.
Yeah, but you can also grow at a declining rate. That's economics, yeah.
Jane, speaking of policies, tax policies, how much can government do to promote pro-people taxes that can maintain economic stability?
How can?
Government promote pro-people taxes.
For me, I think this is what we have been talking about, what Sarah and Robert are talking about, that taxes have to be pro-people, pro-development. But before I come to that, I want just to go back to the issues which Sarah and Robert have raised. The issue of the revenue cycle. The revenue cycle has mobilization, allocation and utilization, and then you come back to mobilization. The way you allocate and utilize will determine how you are going to mobilize. So when you look at the way our resources have been allocated, like Robert has said, the biggest chunk, it has now gone up, the first one, debt repayment and servicing. The second one is security. In fact, agro-processing is below 1.4 billion. The other one is debt financing is 8.5. 7.7 is security. And what we are saying really, we are not at war. We are not fighting anybody. You know, I don't think there is a front that, you know, now Kagame is, the tanks are there, we need to buy more tanks and guns. We are not. It's through the guns, through the barrel of a gun. You know, insecurity comes when people are poor, when people are hungry. You know, a hungry man, not a hungry woman. A hungry man is a very angry person. You know, so people, there is insecurity, you know. In fact, even when they talk about curfew, they are saying, you know, there is insecurity. But because they are young men, you say young man, you know, loitering, that's the source of insecurity. And you are not going to work on insecurity without addressing the issue of employment.
But then you see, you're talking about young people who are insecure, but you also want to tax the investors who are bringing in companies, businesses that want to employ these young people.
We are not saying that it's only FDI. It isn't the people coming from outside who are going to help us grow this economy. And there is nowhere that foreigners came in and grew your economy. Nowhere. Nowhere. You know, we have been brainwashed, even all of us, that FDI is the answer. Especially FDI where the skin is whiter, you know, then, you know, you lay the red carpet. It doesn't happen. We need to grow our own economy, you know, strengthen the backward and forward linkages. Ensure there is agriculture, people producing. You know, look at the model of the crepes model. You hadn't yet been born, maybe. Crepes.
I tested it in Masaka.
You tested it, crepes. In Masaka. There was a very big factory there producing crepes. You know, that was a soda. It was a pineapple soda called crepes. Very good. Yes. You know, but it was made out of pineapples. So people were able, even those who were growing the pineapples, to drink crepes. But today, people can't afford even to buy these fizzy drinks. They drink them at a party, you know? Yet they are growing their pineapples and pawpaws. So we need to rethink the economy. We need to rethink the economy, how government can be able to grow the economy. Government shouldn't be...
Import-export substitution, government is doing something. We are getting there.
I don't see that. I don't see that, you know. For me, what I want, because you see, today when you look at the model of industrialization, these industrial parks, the other time I was coming from Soroti, we passed Timbali. Even the words on the industrial park are Chinese, you know? And you see the buildings down there. You don't know what, it's like an island there. We even were asking people what's going on there. So we don't know, you know? So what kind of mode of industrialization are we looking at? Which can be able to generate jobs, where people can be able to produce, sell their produce, add value, you know, we export them and others are on the market, you know. That's why when we are looking at a tax system, it shouldn't be a standalone tax system. That now what are we going to tax? Okay, we tax Robert. You add-on Sarah, also tax her. No, it has to be part of what he was saying, our development plan. You know, it's a development journey. We are going somewhere. We said we are going to agro-industrialize. And that tax has to be a tool to help you go where you are supposed to go. You know, not to be able to scavenge around. You know, that Damien is also out of it. Put him in the bracket, no. Another issue which I want to raise is the issue of broadening versus deepening the tax base. Sarah has talked about the license. It was supposed to be, it was put on fuel. But you find it's we people who are driving cars. At least we are driving cars here. Drive cars. So it's me, you know, who is going to pay for the taxes on the car. You pay taxes on the fuel. You pay taxes on the license. You, the same person. So that's deepening. Some people, you know, then you go and pay the regressive taxes, you know. So it's important that we broaden, not deepen the tax base. And these are issues we have been looking at. For example, the tax on data. That's scavenging, and it has so many negative implications. In the proposals, they say that you don't, that the data for education and health won't be
exempted.
So how?
How? It's not possible.
You know, how are you going to do that? You know, and today data is not for Lugambo. No, people are doing serious things there on those platforms, selling products. You know, it's a platform for making money. You know, so we shouldn't.
And Jen, for your information, I love the way the drafting of my legal mind here will advise the drafting of that bill. They are saying educational services and health service, which will be determined. So who determines them?
That's health and education.
Yes, the exempted that are going to that category, which will be determined. It means they are giving again the powers, the discretionary powers to the minister to determine what to include.
But how do you determine? Because
and that's what we've been avoiding.
yes, because you look at internet in universities. We know that when you sit at Makerere, you can access Mac-Air. But most of the time, I mean, our offices was based in Makerere for 5 years. Most of the time, it does not work. It's accessible, it does not work. But it helps some students, really, who cannot afford to buy data. But Mac-Air, no. I don't know that it is free government because Makerere paid to lay cables throughout to the university. So the schools, they said they will exempt the schools, maybe for data in the library. But schools, the secondary schools, other than international schools, they don't allow smartphones. I know they allow laptops for A-level, like in these also high-level schools. It's not every other school. These are like the top schools. They allow laptops for A-level. But let me say the students can have access data in the library. But the server of internet, the provider of internet in that school, if, for example, the school is using Smile as a data company, how are you going to exempt? To say that Ksubi, you know, SMAC, St. Mary's Ksubi is buying data from Smile because they don't buy data from government. UTL is almost closing. So how do you exempt?
And you cannot...
Suri is buying data from Smile. How do you exempt it? Secondly, we have online learning. People are on Zoom. I mean, kids are on smartphones, on Zoom doing classes. The parents are buying data. I'm buying data from MTN, Airtel. How do you exempt it? That it's for Zoom classes?
You can't.
It's not
So
practical. It's a lie.
The definition of
It's a lie.
education service and health
It
services
is a lie.
very ambiguous. You cannot,
But it is a lie. It's
cannot
not
find it.
possible.
Yeah, but that said, Sarah and Jane, we also don't forget that government will be shooting its own foot. You know, Nita, I hope this is true, but I've read it. They were implementing a backbone infrastructure to have all ministries and agencies connected to the internet.
Data, which the supply, the
also,
provider?
I don't know. And also promote what they call... they are promoting
UTL
what-
used supply government. But is UTL still alive?
Exactly. And what? But assuming it is,
Yet dead.
assuming it is, you have, and that's the issue of policy coherence that I was talking about. You have NITA promoting a backbone infrastructure to have all ministries connected. They are promoting also something they call e-governance, where they have local governments and it's connected. And then you are introducing such a tax. Okay, let's talk about the Uganda Revenue Authority itself. People are using, it's about 90% automated.
Yes, digital.
Yes. You're encouraging everyone to use e-services, and now you're introducing that tax. So where is the coherence here? This one is pursuing this agenda, and the other one is pursuing the other. So the policies are contradicting each other. So are we going to say you are going now to, for instance, exempt government? And we saw it. I saw it when they introduced around 2014. There was to say that all government purchases, all procurements should be VAT inclusive, and some government agencies became victims of their own policy. You know why? Because they are not paid VAT on their purchases to be included in their budget. When they were requesting, they are not included a VAT component. So we saw them go back to the Parliament to request for supplementary budgets
To pay
pay VAT. Now an individual like you won't have that capacity to do the same. So this is what we say. What guides your planning? And Nita, you saying we want all MDAs to be connected so that when I put Robert Sooner here, he can be ran across ministries, should mention wherever and everything, the provider and etc. And now you're saying, 12% excise duty on data. Are you going to exempt all government services? No. If you exempt them, how will you cover that revenue?
And you know, that's why we are proposing that when it comes to taxing the digital, the digital platforms, we shouldn't go for the end users, you and me.
Yeah, you go for the companies.
You go for the companies. Go for the companies. Go for those digital companies like Uber. Go for Amazon. Go for those. But maybe it will need building capacity. But we need to do that because that's very serious money there, Yet they are not being taxed, because they control their platforms from wherever. Like Uber, wherever in Silicon Valley. But countries like India are doing it. They are trying to do it.
Australia.
Yes, they are.
France.
Exactly.
Because Robert has talked about the issue of the mismatch in the VAT not allocated.
No, mismatch in the government planning.
Planning. Okay,
Yeah,
so I want to.
No harmonization.
I want to ask: is there a broad-based knowledge network of policymakers and possibly renowned experts who support government in making up or coming up with these proposals?
I could answer that because I was one of them some time back. There is this myth in the society that actually government lacks advisors, competent advisors, so to say. My experience is they are very good people in government who can do their, don't say that these policies are not analyzed. The guys analyze, they do even sensitivity analysis, they conduct scenario mappings to show government that this is not right, this is very wrong, this is the way to apply it. But globally and actually in developing countries, tax is political. It's not, it's less than technical. The decision maker is looking for his next election. Even these committees of parliament, they may be sitting on a finance committee. I don't say they are not elite, they know their staff. But if one voice says this thing must pass, I'm telling you by morning that committee will agree to that to pass. So that lack of independence between technocrats and the actual policy makers is the challenge.
But I think
In other countries, let me finish.
Okay.
In other countries, even lobbyists who are going to lobby government will conduct the analysis very properly and tell them we are a trade union and we have analyzed we need a minimum wage. ABCD should be followed. Then they come to lobby. But here, you find that even in the final budget, something may change in the bill that was drafted and presented to Parliament. I mean, we have seen it happen.
Yeah, I have, Robert, a quick question.
Yes.
We engage with the National Planning Authority in the development of NDP 1, 2, and 3, especially the governance aspects. But the cry of National Planning Authority is that even when they make beautiful proposals in the NDP 1, 2, and now 3, the budget experts and finance experts do not pick the National Planning Authority plans to use them for annual planning. Because NDP 3 is 5-year, what the ideal situation would have been is that the finance experts that you interact with are guided
By that one.
by that. But do they follow it?
No.
That's why you see when you read NDP policies and plans and framework, including themes, you will think you are in a different country altogether.
Sure. I agree.
There's a complete mismatch.
document for Uganda.
I know, and people invest a lot of time, energy, and brains
sure.
in developing these beautiful
And
programs.
Sarah, someone challenged us one time that assuming that we do not tinker with the tax policy, like we close up and say, we are only going to change the tax laws even after 5 years. We align to the National Development Plan, and then we just do mainstreaming administration. Will the country survive? Do we have to always every year
But
go
you
in the
see,
income
Robert,
tax exercise?
Robert.
And it was just a question, a food for thought.
It isn't just tax.
Hey.
It's aligning the national development plan to everything,
Yes.
to the
Mainstreaming
budget.
it.
Yeah, exactly, to the budget. And this goes back to the entire issue of governance. You know? Because I agree, Robert, when you say Uganda will have very good technocrats.
Yeah, of course.
We do
We are
issues
not
of
lacking human
no.
But we have been
We
blamed for misguiding the government.
No, but they listen to you.
No,
They
we
don't.
do, and I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about tax alone.
Yeah, but
we
even
do
other-
trade. We
yes,
do trade,
yes.
and I have interacted with government negotiators. You know, government negotiators,
Very thorough
perfect.
people.
You know, perfect. Even in Geneva,
Yes.
everybody will say, Uganda
Uganda.
has good negotiators. But the entire issue of governance, where, you know, somebody will be, then the politics comes in, then orders from above, you know, and things change. For me, I remember one time we were negotiating, we're in Cancun, and everybody had agreed. We had agreed as Uganda, as East Africa, as Africa group, this is what we want.
position.
This is our position. We don't want that. Then we get a letter. Don't do that. Support the Americans. Don't do that. You know? It's also at the end of the day, the whole issue, we go back to what Sarah is good at, the whole issue of governance. So whether we are talking about the economy, we are talking about budget, we are talking about tax, trade, it's governance. And unless we put that right, we are just talking here, blah, blah.
Right there, let me get to
Okay,
Sarah.
no, yeah,
I want
okay.
to ask, from the political side, how do you ensure that the politics aligns with the such social contract
With common sense.
to ensure that we have aligned policies?
Yeah, how do we align the politics to common sense? No, it's very complicated because I wanted to ask Jen as she was speaking. You see, you have these people are very qualified, highly qualified, masters, you know, special courses. They are chartered tax people, whatever. Then we go and they make the most, where the most decisions matter, Parliament,
Yes.
we say senior 6 or equivalent. You know, at times we ask. So you
you have the views of Robert here, a tax expert. I don't know
fact,
what he has studied, how many special courses. Then he's trying to reason things for a senior 6 or equivalent. Because even senior 6 is not guaranteed. For equivalents to approve and implement. So that is the first challenge that we have. And many people have been arguing that maybe we need to create a higher decision-making body like Senate, where we have these experts and they sit and vet the decisions of the equivalents.
And that's we are adding on the burden on the administration.
No, but you can reduce the parliament. You can reduce. No. Let me answer the politics. You asked me about the politics. Let me answer the politics. So when you can reduce the size of parliament in 2 halves. First of all, we don't need that Nambole Stadium parliament. Now they are 538. They don't even have where to sit. I know we have all lost count. They don't even have where to sit. The chambers can only accommodate half of them. They don't even have office space. And now a taxpayer is incurring costs in renting space for MPs. Then you come to cabinet. And the cabinet, majority of cabinet is drawn from the equivalents. So you have these equivalents amplified to the level of cabinet. Yes. So I know at one time Honorable Mshega did say that with this parliament of potato growers, you can't get anywhere. I'm sorry, reality is not an attack on parliament, but we need to revise. We need, the population has improved, the education systems, the education levels of citizens have improved. We need to go away from equivalents. And have reasonable people in charge of making decisions for the
committees that they create.
I'm coming to that. So when you go to committees of parliament, but they are drawn from MPs. They are drawn from MPs. They are still less, yes, they are still less experts. And then politics have become extremely dirty, extremely commercialized. So these experts no longer aspire to even join and guide parliament. So you have, you know, we have about 70 petitions challenging the qualifications of MPs. And those will go through if the qualifications don't exist. So a taxpayer will incur costs for MPs who should never have qualified to be nominated. And they are now duly gazetted and are going to swear in next month. Then you have costs of challenging them, removing them, and then maybe you re-elect another equivalent also whose equivalent is ranking. So we have that cycle in our politics. And it no longer matches with the standard of the population. We need to revise it. Either create a lower chamber and Senate and reduce the sizes, or increase on the qualifications for one to be an MP. Away from that, we have good experts in the embassies, the commercial attaches, the traditional diplomats are highly educated. But the politicians are disaster. So we have politics that do not match with citizens' wishes, demands, and aspirations, and do not match with common sense.
So I need to get back to the politics discussion. Oh, you know, I think the problem now gets to the society. Why don't experts like the Roberts offer themselves to go to parliament and really, you know?
We have done on commercialization of politics. You need a minimum of 500 million to pass through as an elected MP. The cost of one campaigning for politics has eligible costs and illegal costs. You need the costs to fund your campaign team, to move to higher venues, and maybe buy refreshments for people as they wait to hear from you. But you have the illegal costs of fundraisings, barriers, of attending to health needs of voters, of attending to, special needs, school fees and others.
of the constituents in order for you to be eligible in an impoverished
But
society.
for me, I admire politicians, even for somebody, who offer themselves that I'm going to stand.
You pity
They are-
them or you admire them?
No.
You pity
They are in their own category.
Yes, you pity them.
Because you have to sell everything you have, even yourself.
That's why can't experts like Robert
It is
and
not
the rest
attractive. They can do better in their fields.
Yeah,
I mean,
if I
they
have
don't
my-
want to daten
If I have
themselves.
peace,
The
why did I go
point
for
is
that?
to get
That's
it.
stress.
because now
Plus,
now,
they are not fair.
the effect of not
rules
going
of the
there
game.
gets back to
They
the
will
common
rig
man
you.
by-
But in any case,
Yeah, but the
even
system
when
is
you go
perpetuating
there,
that. If the
even
system
when
was-
you go there, what do you do?
That's exactly. The
That's
system
also what you
is
can do.
perpetuating that. Yeah.
When
So-
you do not
so-
have the critical mass
Exactly.
of experts, still
No, but
you
even
cannot
experts who
achieve
go
much.
there end up becoming politicized.
Because they do not have
don't.
the critical mass.
Exactly. The system is
Okay, thank you very much for today and for now. We're going for a very short break.
Okay.
Then get back into this discussion. Thank you, fellow citizens. This is how it gets, and we are breaking off for a short break. Kindly follow this debate on Twitter on the chat show UG. That's our Twitter hashtag. Kindly post your comments there, share your thoughts. Also on YouTube, kindly follow the discussion there, and on Facebook we are live. On YouTube we are live also. Thank you very much. We're getting for a short break and get back. Thank you.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back from this short break, and this is the Citizens chat room, and that's how it gets interesting. We broke off from a break, and with a lot of heat. Let us get back and dig deep into this discussion and try to understand and put this tax issue onto good context for everyone to understand. Let me right off from here, Sarah. Let me start with you. Yeah, tax incentives in developing countries are often found redundant in attracting investment in developing countries. As broad business surveys show that tax incentives alone are usually not enough to change investment decisions. Yeah? Does government still need to succumb to such external pressures from neighboring countries, for example, who share similar structures?
You see, Damien, a country is as good as its citizens. There is no serious country that can plan and invest in visitors. It's like when you are building a house. Normally in our houses, the main bedroom is normally the best in terms of space and everything. Then you have your children's bed, and as a by the way, you can add a visitor's room. That's how tax investments for foreign investors should be looked at in a serious country. You do not prioritize visitors and guests and passers-by ahead of your citizens. The core of any country is the economic basis and capacities of their citizens. Look at the US. The US, all the biggest tax incentives are for the people. And in meaningful sectors like agriculture, I think the US has the best tax incentives in agriculture. But you look at, and for the citizens, not for the investors. Even where manufacturing has become expensive, the US factories produce in China and other countries because it is cheaper to produce there than to produce in their countries. But when you come to our country, where we still have 80% locked up in agricultural sector, but when you go to the budget allocations, we have always fallen short of the Lagos blueprint, which says a minimum of 10% in agriculture, in health, and others, and the Abuja blueprint. So we can't even give 10% of our budget to agriculture that employs 80% of the population. Are we serious, therefore? And why should I discuss foreign direct investment, planning for visitors, the guest room? When you are constructing, do you start with the guest room? Or you start with the main house? Some people, even the guest room is outside. Because it is a by the way, are you going to stay with the visitors every day?
We should invest in our population. And that is the only way we shall be an economically sustainable country with a sound domestic base, sound domestic revenue base that has welfare for citizens and a surplus for taxes for service delivery. That is a sound economy for a stable country.
Thank you very much. Straight to Robert. What do you think are the best? Okay, do you think we could go ahead to offer these incentives? And what should be the standard for which to look out for?
Yeah, there has been, globally there has been an argument on whether all tax incentives are bad. And whether, they, maybe to put it right, whether there are any good tax incentives. A debate that has raged on for centuries and ongoing. Now, I must say that there may not be blueprint for what is a good tax incentive. But our concerns as experts, and actually what I've gathered when I consult with civil society and even development partners like the World Bank and IMF and the rest, the concerns surrounding tax incentives have been in about threefold. One, the transparency aspect of tax incentives. How would you determine which sectors to award these incentives? Who are the beneficiaries? Okay.
And what are the expected
what are the
results?
expectations, the expected results of those? Yeah. Are the citizens aware of those expected results? Who monitors that those expected results have been achieved? That has been a concern. Second concern is the cost-benefit analysis. It is okay for you. In fact, I thank the civil society of Uganda because they have driven government to start putting the local content arrangement in the tax incentives. Now when they are revising bills, they tell you to benefit from a 10-year tax holiday, you should employ at least this number of Ugandans who should...
By 60%.
Yeah, we should get this percentage of the wage bill. I mean, that local content aspect is good. You should use this number of this percentage of local materials in your production. I think that approach is not bad for me. It's a good approach. After civil society has pushed the government to do that, it's not a bad approach. But to the extent that even that one is followed up, I mean, we have had statistical abstracts producing the number of investors we have in Uganda, and you find the guys who declare themselves as investors in Namamve are selling clothing in Kikubo when you follow them up. And this is where I pity the people in the revenue administration because...
There's a scandal for radios for COVID.
Exactly, you saw the radios for COVID. This is where I come in and I pity the guys in the revenue administration because for them, everything comes, they punch revenue administration. But this work is the entire government. Investment licenses are not obtained from URA. Tax incentives are awarded by the Ministry of Finance. Regard Registration Services Bureau does the registration of companies. It should work as a whole of government entity so that we don't look like what my sister Jenna had said earlier on. A tax incentive or any tax change should not be seen to only look at revenue. It should be broader and you are able to track and monitor that this is the exact impact. So, how you determine which sector is benefiting, how you determine who is the actual person who is. I was happy, originally, there were lots of discretionary tax incentives. These BD calls and the rest were being published, but there were so many other people where the minister would say, you merit a tax incentive. You go and negotiate with the minister and you get a tax incentive. Lately, they have tried to streamline them within the tax law. Now, what is interesting, that even within the tax law when they are streamlining, we are not clear about the selection of the sectors. They are not informed by the NDP, they are not informed by any document. For instance, why would you include warehousing and logistics amongst the beneficiaries of a 10-year tax holiday? Production of paper and printing. Production of toothpaste. Who are the guys in those sectors? Why? What benefit? Okay. How important, how essential is that sector to a Ugandan citizen? So that criterion is still not clear to the Ugandans. Yet they are doing well to put it in the tax law so that we know it is there, but they are listing the particular sectors. How do you determine that sector is not yet open for us. The second component is tell us, well, after 5 years, BDCO, all steel rolling mills or whatever, we gave you this incentive, 10 years tax holiday. You promised you'll be employing 200,000 Ugandans. Who are they? How much are they earning? How much are they remitting in terms of pay as you earn? These are other multiplier effects of the investment. No one is following up that. The Uganda Investment Authority does their allocation of the license. The URA collects what it can, because it can't collect now because it is exempt. And then maybe UBOS will calculate the number of investors in which area they do their service. That aggregation and cooperation between government agencies to see that actually the incentive has had the impact intended would be very useful. And that's when you would determine if the incentive was bad, all good.
But they would say there is growth in GDP.
Exactly, but is it attributable
To the
to the
incentive.
tax incentive? That direct link, is it attributable? This is what we don't follow up. And the guy will continue enjoying the thing. And then the idea of mutation. You say 5 years tax holiday or 10 years. What the company does after those 10 years, it mutates. Especially if it's a makeshift company. This was you can really see that this company is makeshift. They don't have permanent structures. They can transfer the plant to another location. So 10 years down the road, after enjoying all these benefits, the company changes shop, changes the name, comes back to request for the same tax holiday, and the government will award. It's a new company. So that monitoring mechanism is basically lacking. And then even when we emphasize the local content, you're saying, in fact, that has been the argument we had in the last tax laws. This local content would be in one tax law, and it's not appearing in another. For instance, we put in the Income Tax Act and say we are giving you a 10 years tax holiday if you employ 60% Ugandans, use 70% raw material. It appears in the Income Tax. In the Stamp Duty Act, you don't find it. In the VAT Act, you don't find it. So the man just gets a blanket holiday across all what? Taxes, without adhering to the conditions that appear in income tax. So some of these nitty-gritties need to be addressed if you are to define whether a tax incentive is good or bad. Yeah.
To Jen, what do you think should be the key sectors you think we could look at as for incentives, and which period would you recommend?
Again, we go back to the way we plan, because we have a plan, we have a master plan, we have the NDP 3 okay now. It should be the guiding document where we should be putting the investors, you know. But now you see, I was looking at the list in this. Then there are sanitary pads, there are diapers, you know.
On tax holidays.
Yes.
Yeah, warehousing and
Yes, they are there.
I hope computers are still on.
No.
I don't see that.
ICT materials should
Yeah, no,
have
I
that.
see
There's
the
the pharmaceuticals.
products, what. But you see, at the end of the day, it depends on where we want to go. We know sanitary pads are okay for girls, but at the end of the day, when you give that tax exemption, does it translate into access and price down for our girls to stay in school? No, they don't. They stay somewhere there, you know. So the whole issue of monitoring, you see, for me, I think also we should leave out the word tax and look at the issue of incentive. Let me give you an example. If a company is going to set up shop in Bugerere, Kayunga, they grow a lot of pineapples, very big pineapples, and an investor is going to put up a very big factory there, maybe dry, maybe make juice. Why can't government take electricity to that plant? Or maybe also provide land there, you know. And we go back, because when you look at the Investment Code Act, it's clear on the conditionalities for a company to access tax incentives. How many people they are going to employ, the percentage of the wage bill, the raw materials used, you know. If there is monitoring and government can be able to ascertain that in fact that's what's happening on the ground, then it's justified. Because, for example, if a company is given, even if they are given those tax incentives for 5 years, I don't see why a company should be given a tax holiday in the beginning for 25 years. Why? Why? Do 5 years, look at the condition, and then review, and then give some more 5 years. But you say, 25 years.
But is there
Why?
transparency in the allocation of these
Transparency.
incentives?
And you know, the problem is also because of competition within the region. We compete against each other. You know, if Rwanda says tax holiday 25 years, we say 30. Kenya will say no, you know, we haven't harmonized that. But what we have also realized,
Because at the end of the day, they will start saying that Kenya or Uganda is not a good business hub.
environment, you know, doing business and all that. So we have done some research around companies which have, in fact, received tax holidays and the way they treat people, our workers, especially women. In fact, we have gone to court. We have a case against that company and against government. You know, the way they treat them, the way they pay them, the food they give them, rotten food, the way, you know, it's, yet they are
benefiting
getting
from them.
tax holidays. In fact, at the end of the day, it's the workers who are paying because that's their taxes, you know. Those companies are not paying taxes. So I think it's important when it comes to the tax exemptions, tax incentives, to ensure that there is monitoring of the cost benefits. Because under the investment code, by the way, the Uganda Investment Authority is supposed to establish and maintain an inventory of all the companies benefiting from tax incentives. And it has to be accessible to the public. In fact, according to that act, you just pay a fee and you access that inventory. And you are supposed to update it all the time. But it isn't there. So we even don't know which companies are accessing the tax incentive. But this is a huge leakage, you know, and that burden ends up on us, you know, the poor us to be able to pay. But I think we need also to be clear what attracts investors. Robert has talked about those footloose investors who come in today, get what they want to get and go out, you know. A good investor, you know, needs good infrastructure, good security, good governance, you know, labor, not really cheap. Access to good, you know, skilled labor, raw materials, good infrastructure, you know, and the certainty.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of uncertainty in this country. Yeah?
The political
Risk, you know.
But of course, the security. We talk of security.
You know, the 7.7 trillion. The 7.7 trillion won't work on the kind of security. You know, we are not talking about security through the barrel of the gun. No, that isn't security, and that isn't certainty. And the tear gas, and these cars all over, those huge cars on all the roundabouts. No, those are scare away investors, you know. That's why you see investors
pass through.
Going to Kenya when towards elections, they pack up and go. Those are footloose, you know.
Which are those key security incentives that you think we could work with, that the government can really work with?
We are talking about the whole issue of
yes,
the certainty that a government, we can go into elections and a new government come into power and things continue, you know, without breaking up things, without tear gassing and all that, you know. That's key to an investor. Because an investor can't come here, bring their millions of dollars, and the following day there are bombs, you know, flying all over. They won't come, you know. So we need to work on that. But we shouldn't be getting money from our pockets to start paying for investors to come here. Yet they are not providing jobs, they are not doing our raw materials, they are not doing anything.
You know, building on what Jen is saying, We know the crisis and why it has taken long for the oil. We know that on Sunday we signed the oil landmark agreements. But what has been the process of exploration of oil and gas before? We had the tax scandal by Heritage Oil. We had Taro closing shop in Uganda and investing in Kenya. We had, so many issues. Then the sale of Taro, Sinok. Every oil transaction in Uganda has been characterized by scandals of kickbacks involving the highest political class. So even as we talk of investment and as we go towards becoming a petroleum country, how prepared are we, given that we have experienced all these scandals, including the handshake, with the Robert's former colleagues, that we worked extra time, you must rub the inner part of our hands. And these are civil servants, So how sure are we that the Ugandan should celebrate what happened on Sunday, considering that we have violated the environmental standards, we have violated the AITI transparency standards so far, and there is uncertainty on what a citizen is likely to benefit. And then when you have massive corruption, political corruption, really the corruption in this country, I think, should be called its actual name. Because the fight against corruption was politicized. If you talk 1, 2, 3 things, then you can go to court. If you are okay with the regime, then you can go and be quiet and enjoy your money. And then, so we have this protectionism against the fight against corruption. And as we talk today, we do not have an IGG or a deputy IGG. They have both. One was appointed to the Supreme Court, another one has retired, and there is no office of IGG. So this is the context in which we are becoming a petroleum economy.
Sarah, just right there, just a little to ask, what is the future of the agreement that was signed? What do you anticipate?
Of course, the 3 main agreements that were signed, the procedures were not followed. Procedures of environmental assessment impact, procedures of AIT, of transparency, and removing those confidentiality clauses. Because this is a public resource. Oil belongs to the people. We know that there are people who say my oil, but oil belongs to Ugandans. It does not belong to a particular class. Also, there are a lot of issues that should be followed to ensure that the Ugandan is able to benefit in terms of local content and domestication of these high-level agreements that were signed. So once we miss it at the very beginning, and I've given the background of what we have gone through, the tax scandals, even the tax scandal with Taro oil sale of shares to Sinok, the heritage tax scandal, where the court in the UK was told clearly that they were told to address the immediate concerns of the big people. I really don't want to go into details, but it was embarrassing. So how do we avoid the oil gas? And then as a governing sector, of course I will not miss an opportunity of highlighting the effect of the oil gas and how it takes away democratic dividends. I know that really our democratization process is on a downward trend. So even where we are, if oil took away the little that we have, I think it would be unfortunate.
Right there, Robert, before you add on what you answer, let me also, you answer this at the same time. How can government foster dialogue and actions to optimize design of tax systems and also maximize the socio-economic outcomes of the tax policies? So while you react to the other,
my major quick ones before I answer your question, especially agenda that has highlighted the provisions in the Investment Code Act. Another issue that has been with incentives has been the definition of who a citizen is. Because the law is saying, the tax law is saying a citizen, and the revisions in the tax code define the citizen. We are amended to define a citizen to include nationals of member states.
Which member states?
Of East African Community.
Okay.
So there is a worry about some would-be Ugandan investors that the Shirud investors globally may walk through East Africa, utilize the infrastructure, and become nationals of East
And
Africa
your
to
citizenship.
partake of the advantages of the tax incentive. And that's the concern, because we are theoretically working in the East African community. I think it's only operating on part of the customs. But when you see the trade wars and the rest, I think we are not yet really streamlined. So that concern also on the what we call a citizen in the law to benefit from, because the law is now defining a citizen to get different benefits from the foreigner, okay, in terms of capital requirements and the rest. So the argument on citizenship is still a challenge. Should we just say Ugandans and we don't say citizens? Because the investment code defines the citizen to include the East African community member nationals.
Maybe can I add on?
Let him complete then. You.
Okay.
And then another issue to emphasize on certainty is also the judicial system. Beyond security, how independent is our judicial system to resolve investment disputes faster if an investor has to have issues? Because investors, actually, this is a very serious determinant of investment decisions. So you look at how long, for instance, is a tax case taking to be resolved? Is that country attractive to me to invest? Before you even think of the tax itself and the rates. How is the resolution mechanism? How can you, how do you make it faster? Is it so protracted? Because it comes with costs to easy investment. So those two issues are what I wanted to include on the submissions under the tax incentives. One, the definition of a citizen, because a rich Kenyan will come here and partake as a citizen in Uganda, because the definition includes him. And then also the certainty. Then I will come to that question on how government can engage. Yes. Madam, you want
So
to
you can interject a little then.
Okay, yeah. On the issue of citizen, you know, that's the challenge also with the local content bill. The president rejected it on two grounds. One, the foreign investors, that they will be scared. Then two, it was the whole issue of saying that in the local content bill, they are talking about Uganda, Ugandans, Ugandan company. Yet under the ES Treaty and the Common Market Protocol, a citizen is a member of the East African community. So what we proposed to Parliament was that we review the Common Market Protocol and the ES Treaty to include the issue of reciprocity.
Thank you.
That if for Uganda we are saying in our local content bill, in our laws, in our investment code, we are saying
And East African can benefit.
can
Does
benefit.
the same apply in Kenya and Tanzania?
So if
and
it
South
isn't,
Sudan?
then we remove it from ours. You know, so that's what we are saying. You know, that we need to balance that. Let us review the treaty to include that reciprocity.
Is there willingness by the states to, are they responding
But
to
that's
that
part
call?
of the principles of the ES integration agenda.
It
They,
is
they
there.
must, you know.
Yeah, do reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, the same.
But we need a specific article that which says that in
reciprocity.
case you don't do that,
Yeah,
if
then
I include it,
retaliate.
then we retaliate, then you don't benefit. Instead of leaving it
I
as
think it can
a
easily be
principle.
put in our laws because it's a principle general in ES. And it's working even on visas, on goods and the rest. So it should apply and say this clause is governed by the principles
Of the ESC.
of the ESC treaty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I want us to finalize with the other what I asked you. Then we get back to
Yeah,
Sarah, yes.
sorry, you could wish to repeat it.
No, because I was asking how can government foster dialogue and actions to optimize design of tax systems and also maximize the socio-economic outcomes of tax policies.
You see, when you invited me for this debate, I'm a man of semantics. I love words attract me very fast. When I read the issue, civic space, I mean, that was very attractive for me to to come to join you, because when you say civic space, I mean, people are given space to speak. And I think my sisters who are longer in the civil society will comment on that. But I think as long as you allow civic space to prevail as open as possible, okay? And then beyond the actual engagement, you know, traditionally they used to call civil society noisemakers. And I've always told Jane here that I wish to see the civil society which is basing its advocacy strategies on research and facts.
Yes.
That's the civil society I wish to see. Because traditionally people used to see people who are going to carry placards and, you know, demonstrate whether legal or illegally. Some are called rallies and others are called riots. That's another story. So, and that's what I'm seeing society of Uganda going through. They are trying to invest a lot in having a dialogue with policymakers on a ground that is informed by figures, facts, and research. They are no longer these guys who used to just say, I will stand on my podium and gather as many people and shout. I think government should embrace that approach. And I'm happy about it because society is already taking that direction. They are no longer the way they used to be branded. So that's one step. Government itself has acknowledged the fact that actually sometimes civil society research has informed some of their decisions. You saw the effort civil society put against the media tax, the social media tax to be reduced at least to 0.5. I mean, that was through showing them what impact that tax has and the rest. So government should support that mechanism. Beyond putting the space, I'm aware that the DGF was under interrogation and so many non-government organizations, which this my colleagues will comment about. They should encourage such spaces where they see, for instance, research being conducted to inform policy. They should endeavor to utilize it. They should endeavor to utilize that because civil society, unlike government, is so much into the people, and that's what we don't appreciate. They are with the people day to day. Unless government understands that they are a little bit detached from the things on ground, then they can't appreciate the role. So that should be another aspect. View civil society as advisors, not compatriots who are going to fight against you and the rest. And that should be the reciprocal from civil society. Not government is against us always, you know, they can't hear us out and the rest. I think when we build that mutual understanding, because I don't think my sister here, Jane, does not feel happy when she sees that now the local content aspects of including Ugandans in the incentive are being included after her struggle. I mean, that's part of the motivation. That's what they count on. So beyond the structural issues of minimizing civic space and the rest, the engagement should be one that honors the opinions that have been generated by civil society through research. You give them such platforms. And I'm also happy that maybe from the civil society aspects, they are getting representatives in parliament, like people who are originally in civil society are now advocates their side. I think those should be our, what do you call it, like ambassadors. You can give him a call and tell him, sir. Yeah. They crossed over. I know they can be politicized, but they can be our starting points.
Hope they have the qualifications.
Yeah. They can be our starting points to say, if we have such ambassadors, it is always easy to bring them on board and say, you know, civil society is not noise-making ground. It is here to advise and see the tax systems improve. Then lastly, the idea of humanizing the taxation story. And when I use humanizing, I'm speaking in the sense of sociology or social sciences. That tax in its complexity seems to be understood that as a boardroom affair. Like me and you who are elites are the ones who understand tax. We should speak to the minds. That's why I loved the topic of this. How does it affect citizens? Yeah. When you tell a Ugandan, for instance, that so and so dodged $1 billion shilling in taxes, and then my sister Sarah comes and tells her, you know, that would have constructed 2 rural schools. You're speaking to the mind. That's humanizing the story. Because as an economist or a trained statistician or a trained tax expert, the component there is complex. I say 1 billion means this percentage of GDP. So what does a layman understand by GDP? When you tell a Ugandan that the tax to fiscal versus physical policy. When you tell a Ugandan that tax to GDP ratio is 13%, do you want to tell him that actually for whichever 100% you collect, only 13, whichever 100% in the economy, only 13 is going to tax. It means the rest is not being taxed. Those little things that can humanize, like relate the very complex boardroom stories to the community will help bridge the gap between civil society and government.
Okay, thank you. Then, Jane, as SEATINI, you're working so much around trade, fiscal policy, and all taxation. How much have you gone into having these discussions with the government
And the people.
and the people? Yes.
Okay. I like what you have said about humanizing the tax debate. I remember when we started doing tax work some 10 years ago, there were not so many organizations doing tax. And I remember in the first meeting we had, people were asking, now have you become tax collectors? You know?
The citizens.
Yeah, the citizens saying, are you tax collectors? Yeah, are you are a, you know? And I remember we used to go for meetings, you know, asking people. The first question we were asking was, who is a taxpayer here? And I remember we were in Iganga.
We still had graduated tax, so it
No, it was before, after. So we are asking, you know, who are the taxpayers here? We got 2 hands. Said, okay, that's good. What taxes do you pay? Said, you know, I work in the local government and I pay as you earn, and, you know, said, okay. The other one said, I work in the ministry, I pay.
The rest were not
And we're asking the rest, don't you pay? They said, no. The president said, no taxes.
Yes, I know.
You know?
Because graduated tax was abolished
No
then.
graduated tax.
So I remember we came up with pamphlets, a day in the life of a taxpayer, you know. And we look at a person like Robert. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you are using toothpaste. If it's this, you paid so much. You say hi to your sweetheart who is somewhere else on the phone, you pay so much per unit, you know, taxes so much. You go, you are taking sugar, on a kilo of sugar, you are paying a tax of so much, you know. So we simplified that. And we went out there to tell people, you know what, all of us are taxpayers. And you can be able to compute your tax every day, you know. So for me, when I look at how far we have come, and now, you know, what I like about the debate today, people saying our money. For me, that makes me happy. Our money. The other time you say, it's their money. People have made the money. Those who have stolen have made the money. You know that the link from the money is government money and the citizens. So today I have seen a lot of debate. People saying we are not paying taxes, we are tired of taxes. We are, you know, for me it's really, really good. And it also goes to accountability. You know, people will start asking for accountability. Where is your money? And for me, I hope we can be able to sustain that debate, you know, at local government level. How much money has come in? How has it been used? Should we be getting this amount of money? You know, so for me, I think we are on the right track. We need to do some more work. The citizens chat room, you need to do some more chats. Bring people, not us, bring people, local people on the ground, market women, let them talk about, you know, these taxes. Because there is, you know about the social contract. That's how we are going to strengthen the social contract. When people start talking about, you know, accountability and about where our money, what our money is doing.
Okay. We're getting to the final close. I would want to your closing shots. I would want to start with Sarah in 1 minute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, really, to me, Robert did bring in a good concept of humanizing the tax system. Because if you look at, I want to compare taxation or a good tax system with a farmer or a herdsman.
As you milk, prepare a cow for milking. You must feed it very well. But even when you milk, you leave milk in the udder for the calf because you need multiplication on your farm. So to me, that summarizes the concept of a good tax system. Develop the tax base, grow household incomes, but also tax people in a progressive manner that makes them make more money and eventually increase and broaden the tax base.
Robert?
I think, may I comment from the whole tax policy formulation process? I would love to see more of such engagement so that a tax policy should not be seen as a technical process. It should be seen to be consultative so that the citizens are much engaged as possible. They know the repercussions of the tax policy you are introducing, but also take into consideration the practicalities of the tax administrator, who is the URA. You don't just introduce a tax and let the implementer implement because you're a policy maker. So I would love that rhyming between the person who is going to be impacted on by the tax, the policy maker, and the person who is implementing the tax. I thank you.
Then finally?
Thank you. I would like to end with a comment using a song by Belafonte. Belafonte sang a song that there is a hole in the bottom. Plug it. We have a big hole in Uganda's bucket. You know, whatever little tax we get, the hole is so big, you know, and it discourages us to pay taxes. So let us plug it.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you very much, my panelists for the day, for joining us into this topical discussion. Taxes are still on. The discussion is still ongoing from our social media pages. You go to YouTube, you go to Facebook, this conversation is on there. It's going 2 to 4 p.m. every Friday. We are here to engage with you. Thank you very much for being our honest and our dear followers, and we keep this conversation ongoing on Twitter. The Chat Show Uganda UG, Chat Show UG. Follow that hashtag, post your comment. Let's have the discussion flowing. I've been your host, Demiano Masesa. Let's meet next time. Thank you very much.